Why does a person that never was a slave deserve compensation from a person that never owned a slave?
Bank of America and much of the U.S. financial system were built on the profits from slavery, using enslaved people as loan collateral and even owning them when debts weren't paid. These same institutions, which grew into billion-dollar corporations from the slavery of our ancestors, continue to uphold systems of institutional racism that today prevent Black people from building generational wealth. The horrors of slavery didn't end with emancipation. They left deep scars that still shape the lives of Black people today. This inherited trauma, known as post-traumatic slave syndrome, is rooted in generations of violence, ripped apart families, and stolen identity. It continues to affect mental health, family relationships, and the overall well-being of Black people. The U.S. government has paid reparations to Japanese Americans interned during World War II and even Americans held hostage in Iran. Yet the only people paid for slavery were the slave owners for losing their slaves after the Civil War. The victims of slavery were never paid. Our ancestors were stolen and endured some of the most violent atrocities in human history. So white people in this country could build their largely unearned generational wealth that they still sit on today, while Black people have been systemically denied the right to build and pass down the wealth we fought hard to earn for generations. Because every single time we did build, for example, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, the whites burned down the entire town and slaughtered every single Black person that they could find. You stole our ancestors. You stole their labor, which made the U.S. an economic superpower. You stole their futures. You dehumanized, brutalized, and traumatized them. Then that generational trauma was passed down to their descendants, who you continue to traumatize and brutalize with your systems of oppression put into place to limit and prevent us from creating generational wealth. And you refuse to dismantle your systems of oppression because that would be admitting that white prosperity was built on Black suffering. But you still owe for the centuries of unspeakable atrocities, because reparations are not charity. It's an unpaid debt that you owe.
Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for always stopping by. So credit goes to all these creators, guys. Let's talk about reparations today. Let's talk about Black Americans and reparations, because this is not a small conversation. Black Americans are not asking for reparations because they feel entitled. They are asking because something real was taken from them over a very long time ago. For hundreds of years, Black Americans were enslaved in the United States. That means their labor was free. Their lives were controlled. Their families were treated like property. Their work built farms, railroads, banks, ports, cities, entire industries, and all of that. And America became rich while Black Americans owned nothing, not even themselves. Now, when slavery officially ended, the damage was already massive. But instead of repair, Black Americans were abandoned. Like there was no serious plan to help them transition into freedom. No land, no money, no protection. And the promise of 40 acres and a mule was taken back from them. So what followed was punishment for being free. Now, Black Americans were pushed into segregation. Jim Crow laws made it legal to exclude them from opportunity, and communities were destroyed if they became too successful. Guys, then came redlining. Black Americans were locked out of home ownership. Banks refused loan. Neighborhoods were intentionally underfunded. Schools were left to decay. Jobs were out of reach. So when people say, just work harder, they ignore the truth, because hard work was never enough when the system was designed to block progress. So when people say, oh, that was a long time ago, I feel like they are ignoring the fact that the damage stacked up generation after generation. Because either we like it or not, wealth is generational. Poverty is also generational, because if your grandparents were blocked from owning homes, your parents had nothing to inherit, and then you start from ground zero. Guys, that is not laziness. And reparations are not about feelings. Wealth in America is passed down, homes are inherited, businesses are inherited, education advantages are inherited. And Black Americans were denied all of that deliberately. And that is why the effects are still here today. Not because Black Americans did not try, but because the foundation was broken. Plain and simple. Do you agree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Because I've been seeing so many videos about reparations, what the government is doing, if it's really necessary. Some people are for it, some people are against it. And I just thought to bring it to you guys so I can know your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Let's see what other creators have to say, and I'll see you soon.
So, reparations in California looks like it's going to be a thing. I have so many questions. First of all, how are you going to, in California, how are you going to determine who and what black people are actually descendants of slaves? Because you do know, if you've done any research, that not all black people are descendants of slaves. So, the ones that you deem are descendants of slaves, how are you going to determine who are? There's so much mixed racing that went on back then and continues. So, what's going to be the determining factor? How much black do you need to have to get a check? Secondly, who's paying for that check? Like, who's paying the reparations? Like, where's that money coming from? Because normally, when this country wants to pay out free things, the taxpayers pay for it. So, if African Americans obviously pay taxes, are they going to be paying for their own reparation check? And again, how are they going to determine who gets a check? Are they going to do like ancestry.com for like all the black people in California? Can you please stop? You guys make it make sense. Let me know down in the comments. Do you guys understand how this is going to go? Like how do I get a check? I mean, do Hispanics get checks? Because Hispanics allegedly were descendants of black people too, like Afro Latina. Like, tell me how you guys are gonna work this out. I'm talking to the liberals and the Democrats. I'm talking to Kamala Harris, who actually told Al Sharpton that she was gonna ensure reparations got paid if she became the president. Let me know down in the comments. I'm so curious because I just want to know who gets a check, who doesn't get a check, how much is the check, and who's paying for it.
The black community needs reparations, whether you like it or not. Reparations to fix, to repair, to heal damaged and broken things. And no, we don't just need reparations for slavery, but that's a good start. We also need reparations for the fact that there are entire black towns hidden under lakes. Yeah, there are black towns that were submerged under bodies of water by white people. We didn't do anything to deserve this, and we did not do anything like this to y'all. And this impacts us to this day because these are places where black people could have thrived and could have built generational wealth that they could have passed down to their children. Also, these people basically have not gotten justice yet. And like half of the time, some of you white folks aren't even willing to even say, hey, I'm sorry this happened. Instead, you'll just deflect and say, well, the Democrats did it. And it's not just that. We need reparations for Jim Crow. Our grandparents went through that. And it's because of shit like Jim Crow that the black community is still poor to this day. Regardless of whether or not the white guilt is kicked in yet or how you feel about this, it doesn't change the fact that whether you acknowledge it or not, every white person in this country benefits from a system of oppression that benefits them at the behest of people such as myself. That in and of itself is grounds for reparation. And then it's really funny to me how there's some white people that will say that black people benefited from being slaves or being enslaved here in America. Please explain to me how we benefited from being here in America without mentioning Africa. The Africa, by the way, that is in the position that it's in right now, largely because of colonialism and imperialism. And the same people who think that we benefited from slavery will also tell us that we don't need reparations. Which is wild because our ancestors basically built this country and the black community itself has had nothing to show for it. We've yet to reap any sort of benefit from slavery. How can you say that we benefited from something when we've yet to experience the fruit of said labor? Also, reparations isn't just a one and done thing. It's not when we just all get cut a check. Reparations looks like releasing all of the black prisoners from prison who were incarcerated due to drug charges. Drug charges that they got because they had to sell the drugs in order to make money to feed both themselves and their families because they could not get jobs and were denied jobs that would pay them enough to do exactly that. And also, it looks like clearing those records as well. Reparations looks like investing within black communities for the sole purpose of lifting up black people and not hiking up the taxes or rent for black tenants. It's about making everything more accessible for black people. It's about giving black people the ability to start their own businesses without having to pay the loan back. It's heavily taxing people like Elon Musk and all of these other rich people that primarily got their earnings off of the backs of black people. Reparations has to be an ongoing thing.
Hey y'all, so I have a theory I want to introduce to y'all. I feel like America doesn't want to give black people their reparations because once they start doing our genealogy and once they trace our ancestors back to see who actually did this free labor, y'all are going to discover that y'all ancestors are originally from America. And they're going to owe us way more than reparations. They're going to have to give us this country back. So what do y'all think? I don't see too many people touching on that subject.
If you have any further doubt how racist and anti Black the United States of America is, just bring up the topic of reparations for Black Americans, individuals who are descended from enslaved Africans. And all of a sudden, you're going to get a lot of hemming and hawing. That's just not possible. That's too expensive. That was so long ago in the past. Black Americans need to move on. There you go. There are those blacks asking for a handout. Reparations must be paid by the federal government of the United States of America if this nation is to be anything other than fake bullshit. Even if this current SMOTC regime is toppled, if reparations are not paid to Black Americans by the federal government and many state governments, this nation will always be bullshit. Because chattel slavery is one of the foundational sins of the United States of America. And all of this other shit that gets talked about in terms of what reparations mean to Black Americans, I think is bullshit as well. I'm going to be quite frank with you. I agree with Nicole Hannah-Jones, who spearheaded the 1619 Project. In my book, reparations for Black Americans would be in the form of direct cash payments. Because anything else is still the United States of America exerting control over Black people. We are grown. Pay us, period. Pay us cash money. And whatever we decide to do with it, that's our damn business. Well, Black Americans, we're going to commission a study and we're going to see, fuck that. But this government needs to do is make direct cash payments to the descendants of the enslaved. Payment for a debt that is long overdue. For the people that say, ooh, you're asking for a handout. Black people always have their handout. Fuck you. It's payment for a debt for all of the labor that we went through for hundreds of years that built this nation into the economic power that it has been. Period. If you want to talk about handouts, then you go over to all of these white farmers that are begging for the government to bail them out yet again. Because somehow white farmers were supposed to be guaranteed a livelihood. Again, if you want to see anti-Blackness rear its ugly head, mention reparations for Black Americans. All of these other so-called programs that they're calling reparations, that's not reparations in my book. Well, we're going to give Black people mortgage down payment assistance, and we're going to give them job search. That's not reparations. Reparations is you getting a check, Black American man, Black American woman, from the federal government. And we know that the federal government can print money because just 5 years ago, the global pandemic happened and the United States federal government printed money to keep the citizens from completely going under, and everything rocked and rolled just fine. People took that assistance and they paid their bills to make sure that they had a roof over their head, a car, transportation, their health care, food, and everything else that they needed. But it was the Republicans that decided, well, people just don't want to work. And that ended that. This nation will always be bullshit until financial reparations in the form of direct cash payments are paid to Black Americans. And to the Black Americans who disagree with me, they say that it is a handout and they don't want it. Fine, don't take it. I'll take your portion.
Guys, I feel reparations are not about revenge. They are not about guilt, and they are not about maybe rewriting history. They are about repairing harm that still affects people right now. When a government causes harm and that harm lasts across generations, repair is just a responsibility. And that same government has the ability and the obligation to repair the damage done to Black Americans. Reparations do not have to look like one thing, right? They can be practical and they can be targeted. It can be, for example, restoring access to stable housing, correcting education disparities, removing crushing debts, maybe supporting Black American businesses and communities, maybe direct compensation, right, when necessary. And it's not about giving Black Americans an advantage, right? It's about removing the disadvantage that was intentionally created, because a lot of people resist reparations because it forces an uncomfortable truth. America was never neutral towards Black people. You cannot just deny people opportunity for generations and then act surprised when inequality exists. And you cannot just extract wealth, block access, criminalize survivor, and then call for results, culture, or choices. Reparations are about honesty. Black Americans are not asking to be saved. They're asking for what was stolen to be acknowledged and repaired, plain and simple. And a country that refuses to repair harm it's created will always struggle to move forward, no matter how loudly it talks about freedom. Because at the end of the day, reparations are not about the past alone. And Black Americans did not fall behind by accident. They were pushed out of land owned, opportunity, wealth and creation. And that push lasted generations. So when people ask, oh, why are Black Americans still talking about this? Why can't some Black Americans let this go? Maybe the answer is just plain and simple. The damage is still here, because you cannot still labor, block progress, and deny repair, and then demand silence and gratitude, because reparations, you're not doing them a favor. It's just a recognition that freedom without all this repair is incomplete. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you for or against reparations? Let me know. I really want to hear from you. And if you have found value in this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video. Please stay safe. Ciao.